We're here this evening with Zack David, who teaches guitar in the San Diego area and who also has a profile on FindaGuitarTeacher.com. Good evening, Zack. Thanks for talking to us today.
Yeah, how's it going, James? Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm really looking forward to learning more about your playing and your guitar teaching. I know you teach in the San Diego area. Can you tell us more? Where are you located? And do students come to you in your lessons?
Yep, I am located in Encinitas, more specifically on the cross streets of Park Lane and Regal Road. And students do come to my studio. As of right now, since I'm recently back in the U.S., I don't have a car yet. So
Yeah.
students come to my studio for the lessons, or we do it on Skype, which has been working very well too.
That's wonderful. And where were you before you came back to the States?
I was in Peru for 3 years in the Peace Corps.
Excellent. And I notice you're playing a beautiful nylon string classical. I know that in Peruvian music and a lot of the Andean music, there's the nylon string guitar is the acoustic guitar of choice in that music, which is so beautiful. Did you become interested in the nylon string when you were there, or had you been interested in that before?
Well, the old steel string that's back here kind of took the back seat,
Yeah.
sadly for her, and the nylon took the lead. Yeah. While I was in Peru, and I was playing with a lot of groups, some what they call música folclórica, which is basically just like folk music of Peru,
Right.
and all that music. And as you mentioned, most Latin American music they use nylon strings, so they converted me. I'm a believer.
That's wonderful. And yes, I notice on your Find a Guitar Teacher profile that you mention in terms of your background and your guitar playing that you were first interested in kind of hard rock and heavy metal and electric guitar, but that these days you're much more interested in folk music and the acoustic guitar. In your guitar lessons, do you teach exclusively acoustic guitar or do you teach both acoustic and electric?
Well, it's been a long, amazing journey. I guess not too long. As a musician, I've been playing for about 12, almost 13 years now. And you're right. I started in the shoes of a heavy metal dude. You know, my buddy and I actually we started playing guitar on a like a nylon string that his uncle gave him that had like two strings left. You know, we were looking up the two strings happened to be the fourth and the fifth string,
Oh, no
and we
kidding.
looked up One by Metallica. So we're sitting there like, or how'd it go? Now I can't even remember. You know, we're looking up that song, and
Wow,
and
that's cool.
yeah, he was picking and I was fingering the guitar. It was, but 3 months later we started up with our own band in heavy metal, and it's been a journey since then, from heavy metal to a punk band, bluegrass, kind of an avant-garde spoken word group, a group in Peru that I just had, and that group was folk. You know, now I've settled down
Yeah.
into the folk shoes. But as far as teaching my students go, I'm happy to teach any style within my capabilities.
Well,
Mhm.
it sounds like your capabilities stretch in quite a lot of directions. You mentioned heavy metal and folk and bluegrass and Latin American folk and
Yeah.
avant-garde too. So sounds like whatever students come to you with, you'd be able to help them out. Do you find that there are particular styles that students come to you most for?
For the most part, students come to me since they just have an acoustic guitar, or they might not even have an acoustic guitar yet. Sometimes when I teach students in my studio, they just use one of my guitars. But for the most part, my students just play kind of singer-songwriter folk, or like covers, like one man or one lady band covers, you know.
Right.
But I have had some students that wanted to play more heavy metal, rock, kind of punk, or more like emo stuff, kind of acoustic
Of
emo. I think
course.
it's called like softcore. So
That's right. I think it
quite a
is.
variety. Yep.
Yeah, very cool. And in terms of the logistics of your lessons, how often do you work with students and how long are your lessons?
Sure. I usually With my students, I usually give them either 1 or 2 lessons a week, and that's usually the perfect interval. That way they can have some time on their own to advance what they learned in the lesson, so they have something to bring to the next lesson. And each lesson is usually best if it's about 45 minutes. I do have the half-hour option, but 45 minutes or even an hour is even better, because the more time you have, up into about an hour, once you get to the hour point, then you're kind of done for the week, and then they have something to go home with. So
Right.
I'd say at least 45 minutes or an hour is the best option.
And what are your fees, Zach, for the half hour, the 45-minute, and the hour options?
Well, at a half hour, we start at $20, and then 45 minutes, 25, and then an hour is $30. So there's a little bit of a discount as you go up per minute, if you look at it that way.
So giving people an incentive price-wise to do the longer lessons that you think would be better for their guitar playing.
Definitely. If you have the 45-minute lesson or the hour lesson, you're going to learn at a faster rate.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Of course. And I would love to hear you play some on the guitar, but I wanted to ask you first. It looks like over your left shoulder there's what looks like one of the smaller Latin American stringed instruments. Am I right about that?
yeah, this little guy is called a charango. And, well, Bolivians will tell you it's a Bolivian instrument, and Peruvians will tell you it's a Peruvian instrument.
Yes.
So what happened is, I guess it's technically from the part of Bolivia that used to be Peru. So I guess it's kind of Peruvian and Bolivian, Either
sure
way, it's Andean.
it sure is. It's a beautiful sound. While you were there, did you actually learn to play that as well?
I did. And this, you can go from pretty much any stringed instrument to another stringed instrument as long as they're not a bow once you learn guitar.
Yes.
But what changes, I'd say, is definitely the strumming.
Mm-hmm.
On this guy, you have to do Latin American strumming, which is really rapid. This way, it's not kind of like the Western, like folk strumming that we do.
Right.
It's mostly in the wrist. You got.
That's very cool, Zach. That's I think a difficult strum to get down, but it sounds like you've got it in the pocket.
It takes some practice, but it's just like anything else, the way that I work with my students is you start slow with the metronome.
Mm-hmm.
You get the click going and you start. And once you can do something proficiently slow, then you can do it faster and faster slowly. Because, a lot of my students, any student, when I was learning heavy metal guitar when I was a teen, every student wants to be able to play fast right away, But it takes a lot of patience and it takes consistent practice. And you have to know what to practice and how to practice. And that's where a guitar teacher really comes in handy.
You mean in terms of guiding someone to use the time of playing most effectively?
Exactly. Adding structure to your practice time, that practice time has to be productive, and a lot of times even different stages in my life as a musician, you reach plateaus or you don't know where to go. You don't know exactly what you should be practicing. And that's where a guitar instructor comes in handy, it's one of my favorite parts of teaching guitar is being able to guide the musician along and help them be able to realize that real progress.
Cool. And it would be great to hear you play something on the nylon string guitar as well.
The guitar that's a little bit bigger.
the guitar that's just a little bit bigger.
Yep.
So
sure.
What do you think you might play for us?
I'm going to play an original song, and this one's called I Miss Being No One. I really like, actually my number one passion in being a musician is songwriting, just the feeling of being able to express yourself lyrically and musically. It's just such an amazing feeling, and that's part of my guitar lessons too, is I really structure the lessons to make sure that the student has the opportunity to be creative. From early on I start teaching, chord families. You got like E minor, C, G, D, how many
Right.
songs use that, and just teaching them ways to be able to write music and teaching them not to feel bad if they're using the same chords as another song. It depends on the melody. Just the mixing and the theory of songwriting, because I really love giving that gift of not only being able to play guitar, but also being able to write your own music to others.
Very, very cool. Well, I'd love to hear some of the song. It's called I'm Tired of Being No One, or
It's called "I Miss Being No One," and
I
it
Miss
is a
Being No
bit
One.
it's a bit sadder. Every musician has some of the more nostalgic tunes and some of the happier tunes. You got to mix it up.
I'd love to hear it, Zach.
Yeah, and another little side note, I like this one because it includes finger picking, and kind of like a Travis picking style that we can go through in our lessons too.
Very, very cool.
Here we go. Some days I wish I could fly away from here into the amber satin sun. Some days I wish I could just disappear, start a new life as no one. Lord, bring me back to somewhere I can call home, somewhere that feels like nowhere. Been stuck in this city, dreaming of running away, get lost in the cold winter air. I miss the silence of gold satin suns, and all the mystery of being on the run. I miss the days when life was only fun, but most of all I miss being no one. Most of all I miss being no one. Most of all I miss being no one.
That's a beautiful song, Zach. Thank you for playing that for us.
That's
The song is
Thanks.
I Miss Being No One.
Yep, that's one of my later compositions, and that's actually I'm in the process of mixing and mastering that one right now, and that'll be on iTunes soon.
Very, very cool. And
Hmm.
one last question before we wrap up the interview. You're playing a very nice nylon string. You mentioned that you have the steel string acoustic. Do you offer guidance to your students about buying guitars?
Definitely. Any question a student has, I'm happy to help. If it's a student that I have here in the studio, I'm happy to go to the guitar shops with him or her. And if it's someone over Skype, just as easily can help, by looking at different websites, Musician's Friend, or there's a handful of websites where you can get quality instruments, usually free shipping, and they'll give you, a lot of guitar players are kind of leery about ordering online, but
Right.
they give you that guarantee. So if it arrives with even a ding or a scratch, you just send it back. So, but I really enjoy helping, give guidance to my students, whether it be a nylon string or a steel string. And I always tell students, if it's a student in the house, I can have them try both of my guitars here. But if it's
Right.
one on Skype, I have the student go to the shop and I tell them, make sure you try a nylon string and a steel string, and I give them the pros and cons of each one.
Right. And then you
Mhm.
let the student decide like which one feels most comfortable.
Definitely. That's the idea.
Well, excellent, Zach. It's been a pleasure to talk to you about your guitar playing and your guitar teaching. And want to wish you best of luck in your guitar teaching in your fairly new home of San Diego after having been in Peru for 3 years. You're
Mhm.
bringing your music to the Southern California area, your love of guitar music, and also your knowledge now of the Peruvian music as well, and students who come to you may well end up with the charango in their hands during a lesson.
Definitely. I'll be happy to, if it's in house, I'm happy to let them play, otherwise maybe they can come visit me sometime.
That's very cool. And thank you again for your time to do the interview. It's a pleasure to talk to you and want to wish you best of luck in the future.
No, thanks a lot, James. I really appreciate the interview.
It's wonderful to be here with you, Zach. And so hope you have a good rest of your day and look forward to seeing you very soon on Find a Guitar Teacher.
I will be there. Look forward to
Okay,
it.
take care. Bye bye.